I'm the Doctor.
I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey, the constellation of Exterminating. I see rats.
Time and relative dimension in space.
It means life.
Greetings, humans, Daleks, Time Lords, and the mighty Geographers. You're listening to Exterminating Doctor Who on Auto Radio.
This is the show to take unpopular episodes of Doctor Who and debate whether they're really all that bad.
With your hosts, Aidan, Gula.
And me, George Ellis.
And in today's episode, we are talking about The Long Game. Our first Ninth Doctor episode.
I was about to swear there. Yeah, you're right. Wow. Huh.
Because we are on episode 9. So it's the Ninth Doctor episode. See what I did there? I do actually think it through. Well, I say...
Yeah. You guys probably don't think we think any of this through, but we do. We do plan it out, surprisingly.
Especially when I look like this today, because I've just been warring with my headphones for 45 minutes to the point where they've decided not to work on me. So now you get this crazy manic depressive hair. That's how I'm gonna describe it.
He's fine, ladies and gentlemen. You don't need to write it.
Yeah. If you can see us on the video one, which of course we recommend you do, especially after last week we were playing with sonic screwdrivers, and that's a great bonus feature. We recommend you watch the YouTube videos, but this week I do look slightly clinically insane. So
yeah, I mean, if you can't watch the videos, no worries. As long as you're listening to us every day for at least 4 hours, we're fine.
Yes, homework. And George has got a background. Well, is it a background or is he in the TARDIS?
I am in the TARDIS.
We will
yes.
never know.
It's really weird when you do that with the hand, because it's like you can proper do. I like my phone. I am holding. Yeah, okay. I'm holding my phone.
Did I freeze?
Maybe.
Oh, never mind. Anyway, the topic of this episode is The Long Game. This is from series 1, of course. I feel like I've seen this episode a million times because every time I do a rewatch, you always start at series 1. At least I do anyway. So I've seen series 1
all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah. So I watch series 1, maybe a bit of series 2, then I go, give up. So then next time I come to do another rewatch, start on series 1. I'm like, oh, here we go again. Yeah. So actually, when we always say we watch these episodes before recording these podcasts, and this one I was actually quite dreading it because I thought, oh, not this again. I thought, I'm always bloody watching series 1.
Whenever, in some reason in my brain, when it comes to The Long Game, I meld this episode and the one where in the Big Brother house. I meld those two together as if they're one in my brain. I don't know why it's like that. But whenever I think back, I'm like, oh, they're both the same episode. And then I watched this one. I was just waiting for the Weakest Link, and it didn't happen, and I was so disappointed.
Yeah, they're both on Satellite 5. That'll be why. But that's the series finale where they return to Satellite 5, and then you get the Daleks and Captain Jack and all the exciting stuff.
So in my brain, some part of my subconscious mixed the two because of the name.
Yeah, but this episode is purely, I don't know, purely what?
Okay, you just got out again there.
Oh, good. I was having a little psychotic episode. I was just saying this episode is just purely, I don't even know. It's just like we're on a market, some news, Simon Pegg, the end. So really, the more Satellite 5 exciting adventures do come later
story,
on.
Isn't it? It's very short story, kind of like a student 5-minute film. That's how it feels.
I mean, I don't dislike it, but as I was saying just before we started recording, I've only got 1 page of notes for this episode.
I've got like
Whereas usually I write 2 pages, or for Revolution of the Daleks, I wrote 4 pages. This one I've only got 1. Because this episode just sort of exists. It's just there.
Right. As like an early statement, what I'll probably say is if I had a choice between rewatching this one and the Witchfinders. I might pick the Witchfinders. Not because this one's bad, but because this one just doesn't have anything super interesting going on.
I
don't
agree.
know. We'll dissect this because this one is it's an I wouldn't say it's bad, but I wouldn't say it's good. It's averagely average.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because of course, the mission statement of this podcast is to take those episodes that people go, "That's bad," whatever, and then we say, "But is it? Is there actually something quite good about it?"
Or we say it is as terrible as people say, and probably worse.
Yeah, sometimes. But this one is one where it's like, look at, because it was episode 9. I thought, right, we talk about New Who on this podcast, so let's find a Ninth Doctor episode we could talk about. And there's only really 3 that people have issues with. There's this one, there's Boomtown, which is when they're basically just in Cardiff for the day. That's essentially the episode. I quite like it because it's quite fun. And the other one is the Slovene 2-parter. And to me, the Slovene 2-parter is actually really good. And the only reason people criticize that is just because they go, fat farting monsters. And it's like, yeah, but there's so much more to it.
The Slovene are great, to be fair. That isn't the best. That's probably the worst part of the Slovene, that whole element. But they're creepy. They attack you, they take you over, and then it's like, now you've got this alien. And they are kind of scary. And well, when you get to Sarah Jane Adventures, and it's Vinegar. But before we got to that, they were quite an interesting.
Well, there's still
character.
Vinegar in Doctor Who.
Yeah, but
Jackie threw vinegar at them in it.
If you have the Sarah Jane companions throwing vinegar, it kind of, if you put a Doctor Who alien into Sarah Jane Adventures, it does lower them down just because they're less scary. Like you don't. What were the Daleks ever in the Sarah Jane Adventures?
No, they wouldn't have had the license.
What? Explain.
They wouldn't have had the license to use it.
Why not? I thought, wouldn't it just be within the...
No, Doctor Who licensing is the most confusing thing. Basically, any classic monster that was created like between the 60s and 70s, whoever created it had the sole license to use it. And still to this day, whenever a character is brought back, they have to clear it with the license holder. So like Brigadier as an example. Do you know in Twice Upon a Time when Mark Gatiss is...
Yeah, don't be mentioning episode names. You got to tell me what happens.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, Twice Upon a Time, Peter Capaldi's last episode, when there's the Mark Gatiss's general lieutenant character, whatever. Then at the end, he reveals he is a Lethbridge Stewart. And then the estates, whoever holds the rights to the Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart rights, kicked up a fuss about that and was like, you didn't clear that with us. You can't just create a Lethbridge Stewart. You have to clear that with us first.
There's probably someone else on the planet called George Ellis, so can't prove anything.
And also, like, people always say, why do the Daleks come back all the time? And it's because Doctor Who have to use them every series, and if they don't, they lose the license.
What? That's okay. How many years since the Daleks were created?
1964 they first appeared, but they probably would have been around.
Just have them disappear until 2064, and then we can just use them for free.
Maybe, but Terrence Dix. Is it Terrence Dix or is it Terry Nation? I always get those two muddled up.
Who is right? Okay, Terrence Dix and Terry Nation sound like two very different things.
Keep going strong.
Why are we cutting out a lot today?
I don't know. Basically, my laptop has just decided it's going to be a pain in the arse today. Microphone wasn't working. Now it keeps cutting out. But whatever, let's just plow on through. Usually when we try these episodes, we take them in chronological order. We're not going to bother with that because it always falls apart. So we'll go thematically. And I think to just generally start, we've said what we think about it. So the whole premise of the plot is that the Doctor and Rose are taking Adam on this trial run.
Oh, Adam.
And they take him to Satellite 5 in the year 200,000. And basically they're just going, try your ropes at it. And we get a cheap space station, a 3-roomed set. No, 4-roomed actually. I'm quite right. Usually when we do these, I watch the episode the night before. I didn't have time yesterday, so I watched it this morning. And
Mhm.
honestly, I'm quite glad I did because I'm struggling to remember stuff now. If I'd watched it 24 hours ago, I'd be no use to you right now.
It's okay. Elements, right. First off, it was great seeing the opening titles again, the classic stuff, the classic music, the vortex. It was lovely. Perfect. I love those so much.
Well, that's a given.
And the beginning, I think, is really strong. Comes out, the Doctor immediately. It's the year 200,000. Go through that gate, and we're on a space. Space station. You cut out with your eyes just glazed over there. That was great. That bit, which is very doctory. I love that. And then Rose comes out, and then he tells her what to say. And Adam comes out, and Rose does the whole. This is where we are. That bit feels very doctory, and it was interesting seeing kind of Christopher's acting there, because it really showed that even when he's not saying anything, you could see he was proud of her, which is really sweet, actually.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Because one thing that I'd say Eccleston is to Rose, the Ninth Doctor, more of a father figure, and then obviously David's perfect. So that's more of a love interest. But it was a really nice intro, actually, and it just showed the relationship between the Rose and the Doctor and how that's progressed, and how Rose has really come to grips with the time travel and all that. But then Adam walks out, and it's like, is Adam the start of the end? Maybe.
Part of me thinks, I'm not sure why this message was actually needed, but we do get the whole not everybody can be a companion sort of thing. That's what Adam's supposed to represent, that the average Joe in the TARDIS would just look at future history. But you need somebody special like Rose to come along and actually be a proper companion. And the whole episode is like, we explore that for, I'm not really sure why we do, really. I'm not sure if that's something that needed exploring, but it's like,
maybe it doesn't feel like it was a main point. It just felt like this. They've written Adam in. Now we need to get rid of him.
And I don't know if they ever intended on bringing him back. Maybe it was setting. It might have been setting something up for the future that they never did. But it just, the Doctor and Rose are where this episode is the strongest. And then it's quite nice to think that this then sets up the next episode, which is of course Father's Day, where Rose breaks his trust and he's like, oh, I've picked up another stupid ape and all of that kind of thing. So it's quite nice to show, how we go from really strong relationship to nothing at all. But the whole thing is like, did we need this message? Sure, we've got it. It's nice. We've got it. Did we need it?
I mean, that message probably could be quite useful for a lot of the more recent Doctor Who episodes. Maybe if we just get them to watch that episode and just think, maybe we shouldn't have 27 companions. That might be a good thing. But I know what you mean. It's not really a very profound message, and it's a very self-absorbed message in a way as well, isn't it? Because it's all about the companions in Doctor Who, whereas it's not a message for the wider world.
Yeah, I think maybe it could be a way of dividing New Who from Old Who, maybe, because there was a lot of crap companions in that towards the end. My least favorite companion ever is Bonnie Langford's Mel. I hate her with a passion. And I think it could just be a way of being like, hey, do you remember those really pointless companions we had in Classic Who? Yeah, we don't have them anymore because we've got Rose now. And it might be a bit something like that. Besides, that's the only reason I could think of why they think this is a message we need to put in series 1 of Doctor Who.
Okay, yeah, considering it is series 1 of the reboot, I can see why okay, I will let that slide. But with Rose, it's seeing a companion be excited about stuff really is a refreshing take. Like, it's refreshing after seeing 2 episodes of 13th era, because it's just nice. It made me feel I texted Aidan, this episode makes me feel warm and fuzzy, because it does.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. It's like that because it's wholesome and everything. Or the Doctor and Rose are obviously very close, but also obviously the obvious nostalgic reason where I watch it and go, oh, I'm 4 years old again. So, but I don't know. It's just very little substance. Very little substance in this one.
Yeah,
and I can see why it is ranked at the bottom of Chris Rexon's run. because it is just there.
Mm.
It's just quite difficult to think of somewhere to begin with this on, because it is just like,
Okay. One huge plus point I can give for this episode is Christopher
Okay.
Eccleston's Ninth Doctor's detective skills. I love that. I love it when the Doctor knows something's wrong, and the companions don't tell them what's wrong. They just, this is what's wrong. It's really nice. He could tell something was wrong just because everyone was human.
Yeah, I liked that, because I know that's explained by narrative, but it was an issue where I was thinking, this is very cheap. You've just got a bunch of people off the streets and just gone, you've got a funky hairdo, you can be from the future, even though this episode looks really dated. Yeah, okay, I'm just going to take a slight detour there. It does feel really dated. Like everybody's like going, I'm from the year 200,000, but look at my clearly Primark 2004 clothes, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, it feels like David's era is where the dated stuff doesn't quite feel.
And I think we're facing.
You cut out. So what happened there was we just talked over each other.
Okay, this signal today is horrendous, and I'm not sure why, because I've got full bars.
Yeah, I'm Ethernet cable, so I'm fine.
Yeah, we're exactly the same as we usually are, but Microsoft Teams ain't having it today. Anyway, carry on. What were you saying?
No, what I was saying is when we go into David's era, even the time travel stuff in there doesn't feel dated as much. I think it's just there's something about the Ninth Doctor's era where it does feel cheaper, and I think it is cheaper.
Yeah, it is. It is really cheap. But like, you'll notice there's no alien planets in the Ninth Doctor's era. It's only space stations, because they can just do that in a warehouse.
Yeah. Oh,
There was no budget for alien planets at all. So
I do like space stations, though. Space stations are fun.
Except when they feel cheap like this.
Yeah. Well, then there was a sweet spot for Doctor Who when space stations didn't feel cheap, kind of David's into Matt's kind of era. That's where peak money. They were rolling in cash.
I'm not even going to defend some of the Peter Capaldi spaceships, because they all do look identical. But yeah, that's where we start. You've got the dated clothes. You've got the plastic water bottles in the background that I think we're phasing them out now. Never mind in the year 200,000.
I mean, they may have figured out a way to make they've got different planets now. They're just gonna do what they did to this planet to another one.
Maybe, yeah. And also there's the bit, when Adam accesses the supercomputer, and it's like, in the year 2019, computers were fake. And I was like, well, that didn't happen, did it?
No. It was like, it wasn't. They weren't even trying to be ambitious with that. It was like, this is in the year 2019, as if that was something in the future. 2019's come and gone, and nothing spectacular happened.
No.
It's a bit of a boring one, wasn't it? Ugh. Yeah, it is. I'm just looking through my notes here, and it's just very. It's dated, and it feels.
But I'm going to take it back to the Ninth Doctor, because if this keeps cutting out, at least we've got something to talk about. Because we haven't done a Ninth Doctor episode before, and actually probably we won't do one again until if we do a series 2, as we've mentioned before, and we do it the flip side, we go, this episode's really good, but why is it so good, or is it really that good? If we do that,
I hope we do that, because that'll be something to look forward to, watching a good episode of Doctor Who for once.
Yes, so I think if we do that, then we'll come back to the Ninth Doctor then. But for the rest of this series, where it's just the bad episodes are they so bad, we probably won't do another Ninth Doctor episode again. So when he has a good moment, they are really good.
Oh, they're ace. His moments
are even just down to the most subtle things, where it is like, you get this 2 where it was like the one you mentioned earlier, when it's like, does that mean something's wrong? And he just goes, oh yeah. And it's like, really just that bit there. And even later on, where Simon Pegg's like going, but does a slave know he's a slave? If a slave doesn't know he's a slave, is he really enslaved? And the Doctor just goes, yes.
Straight away.
I loved that bit. Just like, not even going to humor this debate. It's just, yeah, he is. And
I just think
I just love that.
Yeah, and as I said earlier about when you can see his pride, even when he's not saying a line, I think that's just a testament to Christopher Eccleston's acting ability there, because some of the best actors you can tell. A lot of actors you've probably seen when they're not saying their line, they kind of drop the character because they're thinking about what to say next. But something about Eccleston is when he's not talking, you can still see he's proud of Rose or he's thinking. You can see the character, and it's fantastic. No point with Christopher do I ever see the actor actually, and that is a testament to his acting. He and yeah, and another point I've got about the Doctor and Rose is their chemistry together is
Works
fantastic.
really
It
well,
is. It's so well developed, and it really shows you how much that's missing in New Who, because with 13th Doctor, she can have this charisma, and she does, as we've discussed, but without a companion or other people to reciprocate that, there's no chemistry. Like with King James, we did have that. There, you actually got some of that, and it was nice. But then with the companions, you don't get any of that, and it's like, it's a shame. It just shows me how much we're missing that in the current time compared to what we had with Rose and the Doctor.
Yeah.
The Ninth Doctor's fantastic, and I just think his acting is probably one of the best. He's not my favorite Doctor, but that's just because he's a bit moody. A bit of a moody Doctor, but his acting, and you don't doubt he's the Doctor that's been through a time war, and he's been through 9 iterations. You don't.
He's about my 4th favorite Doctor of them all. But there are some. He's so well characterized throughout all of series 1, and even in an episode like this, where he really doesn't really have that much to do, he still manages to show you all those ways that he has developed.
You've got his anger at the end of the episode, but you've got that intelligence and his ability to figure out. Just he's so damn smart, and that's in when they're in the big room and the spike thing, and he figures all that out, and then he's having a go at her, and he's saying, how many years has it been? You're roughly 90 years held back, and the lady with the big hole in her head says it's been 91 years since the satellite was formed, and he's so good. It's just nice. It's nice seeing the Doctor in charge again, and I don't think that's anything to do with the acting of any of the more recent Doctors. I just think that's most recent actually. It's just the writing. The Doctors being sidelined, Jodie's being sidelined for the companions.
Yeah, and I mean, rather than just making this another I don't like the current era episode, and we'll try and focus just on 2005, but it does lead me into a point that I have here, that we said in our Revolution of the Daleks episode that the Doctor does nothing, and she's just sort of there, and she lets other people do things for her. Now, an interesting fact about the 9th Doctor is that he himself only saves the day in 2 of his episodes. In all the others, somebody else does it for him. Like in this episode, the Doctor doesn't actually save the day. Cathica does, if you think about it.
Yeah.
But what I like about that compared to 13th Doctor is 13th Doctor just looks lazy. She should be the one in all those situations to do it, but she instead just nominates somebody else to go and do it for her, so she doesn't get that moment. Whereas this Doctor, instead, you've got a man who's just come from the worst war, but he's now chosen the people to be around him very carefully, so that the people around him are those people that he can elevate to save the day. So in this one, it's Cathica. In Father's Day, it's Rose. In, there's all these other episodes. Empty Child, it's Jack who saves the day. There's all these other things where it's like but it's not just the Doctor stepping back again. You can do that for me. It's that he has brought this circle together around him where he's chosen very carefully. I want good influences. These are better people, and these can help me save the day. so I don't need to be the one at the forefront.
And he's an active influence in everything. He's an active part of the machine. He like you've been saying, he elevates them, and even in the end of this episode, he manipulates, or at least pushes. What was her name again?
It's Cathica, right? And I think that's a very unfortunate. Yeah, I think it's a very unfortunate name because when she was like, "My name's Cathica," I was like, "Catheter." It's like, oh, that's not a good name.
When were catheters invented? A day after Doctor Who aired. That makes sense.
You don't want to be called Catheter, do you? I bet she didn't have a good time in school. Oi, Catheter!
Oh, poor girl. But the Doctor manipulates Catheter.
Yeah, we'll just call her Catheter now. Let's roll with it.
So manipulates her into saving the day. So it's not like he just lets her do it. He kind of pushes her towards that, and that shows kind of the darker side of the Doctor as well. Because she could have died, to be fair, but like it's interesting. But the main thing, the difference between this Doctor and the 13th is the fact, even when he's not doing something, he's a part of it. He's the reason people are there. He's the reason, he's the reason for the situation at the very least.
Yes. And even like working out the code, then she put it in afterwards. It wasn't like she was like, I've got the code, and then it's all as a result of his consequences. Also, that lift stressed me out. I'm not a fan of lifts anyway. Never mind a padded one with strobe lighting. That would just would distress me.
I mean, at least now if it crashes, you've got some airbags there. It wouldn't save you at all. You'd just be bashed around.
I mean, it looked like an insane asylum, padded white cell, but they just we'll just paint it red instead. But you still have strobe light.
Yeah, and those lifts weren't going anywhere anyway, because it's all just one big set painted differently depending on. But one thing, the sets, they are quite good for the time. It's dated, but they are quite good.
I suppose so, yeah. But especially as they used them again in the series finale, because we were back on Satellite 5. It's probably built it and went, got to get our money's worth of this. Let's just come here again, shall we?
It's probably the most expensive. Which is more expensive, Cardiff or Space Station? Probably Space Station. Right, I think that's enough about the Doctor. Mr. Who, as I like to call him. Mr. What?
Did you notice he was credited as Doctor Who in the credits? I've never noticed that before.
What do you mean?
Well, in the credits, most New Who is the Doctor, played by David Tennant, played by Matt Smith. This one, it was Doctor Who, played by Christopher Eccleston. And I like that.
Because I've never thought that his name was Doctor Who. It's always just been the Doctor, and people wonder who, so it's just become Doctor Who.
Yeah, in classic Who, he's always Doctor Who.
Oh.
And if you've ever heard Peter Capaldi or Stephen Moffat ever talk about Doctor Who, and they'll talk about the character, they always say, "Well, when Doctor Who did this, and when Doctor Who does that." And I've always liked that detail. If you're a fan of old Who, you will call that character Doctor Who. But if you're a fan of New Who, you tend to say the Doctor.
I've always said the Doctor, yeah.
It was just a very small detail that I noticed, and I was like, I quite like that.
Because it shows that they're still kind of figuring out how much they should be like classic Who. Is he called Doctor Who? That's cool. Yeah,
it's quite nice to see Series 1. Yeah.
One thing about the whole of Series 1 is it is strong, but it does feel a little bit like they're still finding their feet, and I like that. It's baby steps. Baby steps.
Yeah, very much so. It's
strong.
Yeah, it does
steps.
feel.
It's a big baby, but still baby.
It does feel cheap in some places. It does feel cheap in some places, and it does feel like we've not quite worked it out yet. But it's still like Series 1 is still one of the best series of New Who. Like, it's probably maybe my 5th favorite, maybe ish, but it's still like that is quite high in a series of 12, you know?
Yeah, especially when most things should get better in time, not worse. Oh, but alas, that's Doctor Whomst for you.
Yeah, so let's just take this for what it is and just try to ignore The 13th Doctor.
Although the 13th Doctor isn't the problem.
No, as we established last week.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Last point about the Ninth Doctor that I have, and it can take us on to Adam, because Adam really is like the biggest thing about this episode. Is like, hey, look at this Adam guy. He messes up, doesn't he? And that's basically the point of the episode.
That Adam is the kind of person I just want to hit, because he's like, are you so dense? You were like, oh, they've got holes in the head. I'm going to go get a hole in my head. It's like, what the? I want to wring his neck because of how dense he is.
And that's why I like how the way the Ninth Doctor deals with him, because it shows that, you know, this Doctor is still flawed, and there's a real duality here where he is very intelligent and he's very kind, but then at the end, if he can't be bothered, he won't be. And when he is just like, that's it, you're gone, and you sort of think that's a really reckless thing for this Doctor to do, leaving a man on modern day Earth with technology from 198,000 years in the future. And the Doctor even says, if they find you, they will dissect you. And you sort of think, why have you left him here then?
Yeah.
But it's actually
that would change the time period as well.
But it's a very cruel thing to do, really, because you've basically said to him, yeah, you've got something in your head that could ruin your life and change the entire fabric of this planet, unless you just live a quiet life and don't do anything. So this Doctor basically just
change the default from a click of the fingers to like Alakazam, something.
Yeah, but that's what makes it so cruel, because he's literally saying to him, I've just ruined your life and you can't do anything now, because if you do, you're going to destroy this planet. And that's such a cruel thing to do.
I mean, he was going to do that anyway. That's the thing.
Yeah, but now
he was going to go back with the knowledge. So it's just like you wanted, like he gets the punishment without any of the reward, and it's a nice, it's very poetic.
I wonder if you could say as well. Do you know we were saying that the thing about 2019 having dated it? But maybe it actually makes sense, because if Adam's gone back knowing this thing's going to happen in 2019, and then he tries to do something about it, but then it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
it's like he's back reversed
it before it happened, but instead he creates it and it's probably a worse version or nothing compared. And people are like, well, this is dense. Let's not go down this route. Right, okay. The Doctor's just picked you up. You're going on a space station. What's the first thing you do?
Have a beef Slurpee.
Yeah.
Slushy.
Try it out. He just annoyed me how he was so, I don't want to try this or do this and this. It's like, come on, dude. Do something, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if he does represent...
You're going on a date with Rose bleeding Tyler and he doesn't try in the slightest. And he's like, I wouldn't be able to get in the way of you and the Doctor. And it's like, if you tried, maybe you could have.
Yeah. I like that he's basically just a one-night stand for Rose, but then she's like stuck with him for the next day. I quite like that, because obviously they've met in Dalek. It's clear what's happened in between Dalek and now she's just like, and the Doctor even says, he's your boyfriend, and she goes, he's not my boyfriend. And like, so I'm watching it going, I know what you're doing here, Russell. You've implied there's been a one-night stand in the TARDIS and now we can't get rid of him. So I quite like that. But then I do think he represents the average person, though, because I do think
we're not okay. The average person, because obviously me and Aidan aren't average, and neither are our listeners.
Well, we're definitely more intelligent than the average person, but I do think the average person, if you did take them into the future and they had a computer that told them everything that happened, they absolutely would.
Oh yeah.
So you need somebody special like Rose to be like, I know I shouldn't do that.
Or it's just, and I think the circumstance around a lot of the companions mean they aren't going to be like that. Like when he meets Rose, it's when he meets Rose, it's in a situation. Meets Martha, it's in a situation. Meets Donna, it's in a whole city. Like it's not just for the pleasure of going somewhere. It's a whole. This is how scary this place can be. They all start off seeing some of the worst stuff they could see. And then they're let into this world. Whereas with Adam, he's just let into this world without any sort of... It's like a trial of passage, like a rite of passage. Whereas Adam just gets to be everywhere, so he doesn't know how scary the time universe can be.
Well, he has just dealt with a Dalek, though.
Yeah, but did he?
I mean, well, I say he dealt with the Dalek. He was there when the Dalek attacked.
Okay, well then he should have known better. I forget the timelines.
I mean, something I was doing a little bit of research. As I always
Right,
do.
before you say anything, either way, just to end my point, he should have either been 1, it explains why he was so dumb, or 2, should have known better. So either way.
Yeah. But what else I was about to say, whenever we do these, I do a little bit of research before. Sometimes I don't go very deep if I know a lot about the episode anyway. But this one, I was like, because I did think, did they have? I thought, did they have plans to bring Adam back? Strange character to introduce only to get rid of straight away. It doesn't look like they had any plans to, but he did come back in a comic years later. Couldn't tell you what it's called now, but a 2013 comic where he basically has a grudge against the Doctor for leaving him in that time. So he teams up with the Master in some plot to kidnap all the Doctor's companions for reasons. Anyway, and there's all these like things where it shows like flashbacks of he's now older and he's got a beard, but his forehead still opens up, and he's basically just bitter at the Doctor for doing that. And I quite like that as a story, because it's like, okay, that whole Adam thing wasn't just pointless. He then does team up with the Master and does this whole thing. Wherever the comic goes from there, I don't know. I've not read it, but maybe it would have been worth him coming back in Doctor Who. Maybe not now, because the actor who plays in Bruno Langley was done for sexual assault. But but so don't bring him back now.
Yeah. Recast him if you want. That could work.
In like, yeah.
I was actually about to say I don't like the actor, and I was worried about saying that because it would maybe be a mean thing. But in this case, I really don't like the actor.
No, he was in Coronation Street as well, and then had to suspiciously leave halfway through because he was arrested. So not great there, Bruno, and I don't like your character either. So, but maybe it would have been worth bringing him back in series 2. Maybe. Do you know, like the same way they brought Harriet Jones back? Maybe he could have been like scientific advisor or something like that.
I always liked Harriet Jones.
Yeah.
I
don't like Adam.
No, Adam wasn't very good. Neither was the actor, to be honest. So if they were going to bring him back, I'd say recast him. And now I know about the arresting thing. Definitely recast him.
Just don't bother. Let's just say that 2013 comic is counted as canon, and just say that's what happened to Adam, so we never have to deal with him again.
That's an easy solution.
Like I said earlier, he is there to signify that not everybody can be a companion, and it does show, and that enhances the Doctor and Rose in this episode, because they are very, very strong, as we've said, as we've built up.
Yeah, it shows that comparison.
And like I said, when it goes into Father's Day and she betrays his trust, then it's nice when you watch the full thing in context to know that, well, she'd just proven herself to be the companion, but actually even the companion can mess up as well. I don't know, we're sort of going into Father's Day here a little bit, but it still shows every character has a duality and they're not just one-sided. I have dyspraxia and I can't ride a bike. 2 series later, I still can't ride a bike. Do you know what I mean? There's you don't get that. I know. I said I'm trying not to compare it to the new series, but it does show you a different quality of writing the Doctor Who had.
Yes, and maybe this episode isn't really meant to be an episode by itself. Maybe it's more of an episode to help the next episode or the episodes around it, to kind of give the characters between the Doctor and Rose more of a substance, and you can see how they're so much different to other people. It's more just to help the characters.
Yeah, it's a great way to sum up this episode, because this episode, rather than being this really nice gritty thing that is, although here we are, go a little slight tangent before I get to that point, but actually the whole message of this episode is about fake news and people lying through the media. Relevant. It's not like that message has gone away, and if anything, that message is actually probably more relevant in 2021 than it was in 2005.
Well, it's definitely more relevant, because in 2005 the internet was a very young thing, but now the internet is a huge thing, And I remember when we were younger, your parents would always say, "Don't believe everything you see on the internet." And now your parents are like, "I believe everything I see on the internet."
Yeah.
It's like
It was on Facebook. It's got to be true. So
yeah. I mean, I'm probably
yeah.
guilty of reading something and assimilating that, but
Oh yeah, I think we all are. But it's like you're right. I didn't even think about the internet. I was thinking of news and broadcast.
Oh.
But back then, they're not even talking about the internet. Then they are literally just talking about TV news. And now we've got the internet. So there's a whole other problem that they hadn't even. It's not even addressed in that episode.
No, but it all still applies, and that really shows you how, although a lot of the future predictions weren't very good, humans are still very predictable in how we are manipulated or manipulating. We are evil.
Because it's like there's, you get that really trashy headline where it's like the face of Bo's given birth and that kind of thing. That still exists, but you probably wouldn't see that on TV now. You'd see that on the Snapchat discovery area or something. Do you know what I mean? That's where it would be.
Oh, that's like the cesspit of the internet.
Yeah. You was like, oh, what is that? Who cares? Who cares?
Why is the advert 10 seconds long, but the clip is half a second? It's like, why am I here?
Yeah. Or you go, do you ever see that when it's just like such and such and such and such from Love Island have broken up? And I look at it, I'm like, I'm not bothered.
My world is ruined.
Claire
and David,
do not care.
Yeah, it's
Claire and David. Is that the middle-aged version of?
I don't know why my brain meant name two names. Claire, David. There you go.
Yeah, but it's still nice. It's a positive point for this episode in that the messaging and the satire is still relevant.
Oh yeah.
And even though the fashion is dated and the props are dated, that isn't. Anyway, how did I get here? What was my original point? Functional. Did you get that? Did I freeze on a slightly insane shot? I'll say it was my original point is that it's a functional episode, and then I went off about messaging. Right, okay, thank God for my notes. Yes, so we originally saying is it's functional because it sets up the Doctor and Rose's relationship in the next episode. It's functional because it sets up the Satellite 5 setting of the finale. This whole episode is basically just there. Maybe even why it's written by Russell T Davies, because he was like, okay, I've got this thing later on that I should probably just set up a little bit first. And that's what this whole thing. It's functional because it addresses Adam from the last episode.
Just exposition.
Yeah. It's an exposition dump. So it's a really strange episode in that.
Yeah.
I've only got 1 page of notes. We're struggling to what to say. And yet it is actually quite an important episode.
But it's not important because of the substance. It's important because of how it elevates
impacts. Yeah, that's it.
So that's the function. Shall we actually talk about Simon Pegg, maybe?
I was about to say let's talk about the S's. Let's talk about Suki and Simon Pegg.
Suki is the one that goes up the lift first, isn't it?
Yes, and you greeted me with the amazing comment last night that genuinely broke me, where you were going, this actress who plays Suki, right, I'll quote exactly what you said for the listeners and the watchers at home. Who plays Suki? She looks really, really familiar. I'm sure I've seen her in something, but I just can't quite place it. Also, she really looks like me. Oh, God.
Yeah, that because I watched this one at like midnight last night. I saw her and I recognized her. I was like, who is this? Who is this? But as I was looking at her, my brain went, I see a resemblance here. Because on Snapchat, you can see your face. So I could just it proper freaked me out.
I do like how she is a spy in the midst of this thing. And she is basically there like, something's wrong. I need to take down this. Is it a corporation? I don't know what you could call it, but we need to take down this organization. I do quite like that she is actually not just. I want a promotion. The walls are made of gold, which I kept getting muddled up with. The skies are made of diamonds, but I thought obviously Russell Davies likes his "the things are made of something" quotes.
Is that from
Utopia? Yeah.
Yeah. That. I wanted to know because otherwise that would have haunted me for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Days.
But anyway, And now we can lead that on to another line that I really liked was when she is confronted by the editor, played by Simon Pegg, where he just goes, self-declared anarchist, it says here. And I really like that line because it wasn't like, we've got you listed as an anarchist. You call yourself an anarchist. And I really like that because I thought that is the least anarchist thing to do. To go, I'm an anarchist.
Okay, Simon. Out of all the comedians they've decided to get in Doctor Who, I don't think he's that bad. I really don't. I think he feels that he does feel a little bit out of place, but it kind of works.
No, I completely agree. He works really well because he's one of the great actors they've got in Doctor Who, who's a fan already. Do you know what I mean?
I was treading water there because I know when sometimes I say a point and it's completely wrong, and then I get back, no, you're wrong, and I'm like, So I like to.
No, you're right. He is a great part of this episode. The only hindrance I think he has is that he's completely underused and wasted. He just stands in one spot.
Yeah, he doesn't feel like he's in control, but he does have this element of it. Like, one of my favorite lines from his is when everything's crashing down, and he says, "If it's all the same to you, I'm going to resign now." And he tries to he tries to leg it, and it's like, that is so like scummy producer kind of thing. Everything's it's their fault, and they're like, I'm just gonna weasel my way out of this.
No, I do. I think I just sort of, sometimes we've had actors from Doctor Who have been in something before and they come back to play a later character. You know, Peter Capaldi, Karen Gillan, loads of people have done it. And I sort of think I want Simon Pegg to come back as a new character because I do sometimes forget he was in it.
It's because he's in such a forgettable episode. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's not like
he would have been great in the later Satellite 5 episode. That would have been a good place. They should have let him live, and they should have brought him back, or at least let him live so he could come back.
Maybe, but I think there's a time difference.
Time travel. Get over it.
Yeah, so we could have brought him back in some way. I don't know what it is, but I like Simon Pegg. I love him in this. I think he's great, but I do just think maybe it's because Simon Pegg wasn't as big then as he is now, that I think maybe they've not made a big enough deal going, it's Simon Pegg. It's just like, Simon
he's
Pegg,
this famous guy, you know. We'll get him in for you. And now it's like, yes, it was Simon Pegg. He was guy from Hot Fuzz.
But he plays it really well. Like he does a proper campy pantomime villain, but it is like, you know, he does the whole, if something's wrong, and he does go through all of that, but it still works. It's absolutely fine because we are reminded Doctor Who can be campy and cheesy, and here's why.
It's part of its charm.
Leans into it. It leans into it and it owns it.
Yeah, Simon could have just been used more, and it's a shame he wasn't. But with
just to halt you there, to stay on this point, something that I've written here, a criticism that a lot of people have about this episode is that the villains don't feel like a threat. And you've sort of said that already about Simon Pegg. Although we're saying we really like Simon Pegg here. Some people say villains don't feel like a threat. I do have a comeback. Do you have a comeback for that point?
No, I agree.
Well, I would say then that the villains don't need to be a threat because they're already... Did I freeze again? I did.
The villains don't need to be a threat because they're already in control.
Oh, I didn't freeze. Well, it's a miracle.
You did.
Yeah.
I managed to piece it together through
Okay. Well, yeah. That's my comeback for that point. I saw that as like a criticism of the episode. It's like, well, the villains aren't a threat. And it's like, they don't need to be because they're already the ones in. Yeah. And it's more like they've made some mistakes here. Now we're going to expose those mistakes and we're going to topple them. But they don't need to be, I am the villain that will ruin your days, you know, that kind of thing. Because they don't need to. They are in control here. They're not trying to get power. They have power.
Yeah. But seriously, okay. How the hell would that monster get in the ceiling? How would he become the controlling being?
I don't know.
There's a lot of steps involved in that.
Maybe he can slime. Maybe when he was littler, He could slither about. Now he's too big to move. Maybe he's like Jabba the Hutt himself.
Yeah, but Jabba can still move.
Not very fast though.
Yeah, but he's got like one gear to him.
Whereas as soon as the Jagrafest starts exploding, maybe he thinks, nah, that's it. I'm not even gonna bother.
Had a good run, didn't I?
Yeah, I am the mighty Jagrafest.
Mighty is a strong word, isn't it, for it? I really think the alien's a terrible thing.
I can't remember that. Should I try and find the full name of it? Because the editor.
See, the thing is, I can remember Raticoa Cephalopatorius. But the Jagrafest, I can't remember anything about that.
The mighty Jagrafest
from
of the holy Hydrojasic oh my god, I can't even say this. The mighty Jagrafest of the holy Hydrojasic Maxarodenfo. So then Simon Pegg just goes, I just call him Max. So shall we? What would you do to fix it? Because that's what's actually really strange. I cannot think of a single thing I'd change. I'm struggling with what to change because I do think, although it's meh, and we've struggled to actually say stuff about it,
it is an important piece of the wider. Yeah, it's a piece of the puzzle, and without it, the picture's a bit.
Maybe you could just say like take away references to 2019. You know, it's very sudden. You know, history.
But it being dated, it's part of the time period. It's part of like Doctor Who. Yeah.
The only thing I'd say is, maybe change the fashion, change the plots, make it feel less dated. Maybe put
more money into it.
Yeah. But they're all like production issues. There's actually not really anything with the story itself, which is what we're here for, this podcast. Yeah. We're not here to say, well, that sound guy could have done this better. We're not really here to say that.
The sound's fantastic.
But it's, there's actually very little stuff with the plot that I think, oh, why did you do that?
I know. In every single one of these episodes we've done, I've been able to come up with at least something to fix it. But with this one, because it's just a part of a bigger picture. It's like the first part of a 3-parter, not a 2-parter. That's how it is.
Yeah. Although it's a bit like underwhelming end to this podcast, it does still make it interesting for this episode, that in that even you can take something that's a bit meh, you can take an episode that you do see at the bottom of these rankings, but actually when you think about, well, what would you do to do that differently, you sort of go, well,
yeah,
even though it is meh, even though it's a bit boring, even though it's forgettable, and even though I'm really glad I watched it this morning rather than last night, because I'd have had even less to talk about, I can't think of what to change because it does serve what comes later really well.
Keep it as is, but if ever you decide to rewatch this episode, just watch it with the one after. Don't watch it by itself because you'll want to just fall asleep.
Yeah, well, that brings us to the end. It really does.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone, about that pitiful ending.
It's quite a depressing episode, really.
I know.
Isn't it?
I was about to say, shall we spice it up by saying, what's next time on?
Well, next time we are on our 10th episode. We've reached 10 episodes.
Wow.
So, of course, we're going to be returning to the 10th Doctor, who I feel like we've discussed a lot. So this might be our last 10th Doctor episode for quite a while, actually. But we are going to be talking. Our next episode also falls on Valentine's Day. So I've purposely picked an episode that sort of has that theme, and we're going for the Doctor's daughter. Now, no, okay. I realize that sounds slightly incesty, but I mean that, of course, David Tennant married Georgia Moffat. That's what.
Yeah, no, I knew that, but I just
When
a lot of people.
When I said this is a romance episode, it's about his daughter. I thought,
okay.
Because the Doctor's daughter is one that I see ranked quite low. And I've never understood why.
I've always liked it. I'll say that now.
So that's our topic for next week, when hopefully I can have my headphones on because my laptop isn't being a complete. And
I can't wait for you to cut that one out.
And maybe I'll look a bit less insane, and we can be a bit more on form. And we have an episode that there's a bit more of a meaty discussion. So come back next week. If you've not heard last week's discussion about the Witchfinders, please do. It's by far our best episode yet.
Well, not by far, because they're all
No,
an incredible
by far.
standard. But no, but I do think the Witchfinders was our best episode, mainly because I just think because it was about talking about something positive about the new era, and it felt like we had come to a really good conclusion about why the latest era doesn't feel like it works as well as it probably could.
Yeah, and we were positive. We do, I think, safe to say we do like the Witchfinders.
Yeah,
and I do think we do like the long game. Even though it took me a moment then to think about what this episode was actually called.
Yeah, the amount of times last night I texted Aidan, is it the long game we're watching? It's the long game, right? Because I kept forgetting. Because but no.
So yeah, that has been us for this week. Please do come back next week. I promise we'll have a better discussion.
If you start listening to this one and you're getting bored, just switch over to Witchfinders. Listen to that one again.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you for listening.
We had to do this episode. We had to talk about it.
Yeah.
But thank you for listening, everyone.
And goodbye.
See ya.